Hey guys, uh, listen, I am kind of excited about this episode because um, it's number 21 already, like lucky 21, right? It's probably going to be something hard to talk about. And y'all have to forgive me because I have the sniffles today and I'm not sure why or what's happening, but this is Texas and the weather sucks and it's changing. And I want to tell you something funny before I go into what I want to talk about. And this goes back to, I don't know, like meeting people in public. I know last week, I know what I need to talk about first. Sorry, squirrel. Last episode, I made a comment about not knowing many women who can just push through whatever they got to push through, no matter what's going on. And I have to give a shout out to my girl, Holly Thedford, who's been on this podcast before. Um, She's the one that does we do Luke 17:10, the ministry at the juvenile detention center together, and, she is probably definitely one of the strongest women I know, and there's a few more. So I didn't want it to sound like that I didn't think other people were strong, but with, like, I don't know. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say. I wanna shout my girl Holly Thedford out 'cause, she's a badass. So Danny and I went to breakfast this morning at one of our favorite breakfast places, and we frequent this place. Yeah. And because it's a good breakfast and it's not expensive. Uh, and I've talked to several of the people there. They recognize me from our testimony page, Help Yourself on Facebook, and for the Xyngular stuff, right? And they'll ask questions and I'll say, hey, I'll send you some info, whatnot. And then I follow up with them. And if there's one thing I'm actually really good at is following up. Like I'm one of those people, like once I meet you and you're in my mind and you're in my heart, I don't stop. I'm not going to give up on you. I'm not going to give up on you while you're doing this. And I'm not going to give up on you just period. Right. And so there's this girl that works there and I'm talking to her for probably about a year and following up, and she sees my messages. She just doesn't say anything anymore. And I cheer her kid on a couple of times and on Facebook and whatnot. And we frequent this restaurant enough that we do tip really well. We've had large groups of people meet there at this restaurant, and uh, like last Christmas or Christmas before, the waitress walked away with an $800 tip between all of us. We have like a give back lunch, brunch, breakfast, whatever we decide to do, where each couple brings $100 and it pays for the meal, and the waitress gets to keep the rest, and it's really cool to be able to bless people like that. And that's what I love about Xyngular is that I can give back to our community. That means a lot to me and to Danny too. We like doing that, so we've done that several times in that restaurant. So I mean, people kind of know who we are there, right? And it's not like I don't say that like, oh, look at me, but they do. Their wait staff is they don't have a lot of turnover, so their wait staff it's the same people, which is actually a good sign, right? And anyway, so I was talking to this girl, and today she saw me in there, and she didn't really say anything at first, and I was starting to feel bad about this, but anyway, she's like, "Hey, I thought I recognized y'all. I saw y'all, wanted to come say hi." And I was like, "Hey, how are you?" And she's like, "Good." She's like, "I'm not ghosting you or anything. And I was like, "Yes, you are." And she's like, "Well, I'm not." I was like, "Yeah, you are. It is okay. Don't worry about it, girl, you know?" And and I just kind of left it at that and went back to my conversation with Danny. And when she walked away, Danny looked at me and goes, "Hmm." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "I don't think I've ever lately actually seen your bitch face." I was like, "We've been together 15 years. I assure you, you've seen my bitch face." He's like, "No, I don't think I have until that moment." And it wasn't like, uh he said, "It wasn't like anything I've ever seen." It was basically for the first time I saw you not give an F. And I was like, I don't, right? Because if that's how she's gonna treat me on a regular basis, then I don't have time for her. I don't have space for her in my mind. I don't have space for her in my heart, right? If that's how you're gonna treat somebody. Um, and trust me, it's been a lot of follow-up and a lot of she sees it and doesn't say anything and ignores it, and the simple thing is you could just simply send a message, says, "No, thank you, I'm not interested," and I would leave someone alone. But as long as you're still watching and you're still paying attention, right, I'm still gonna message you because, like I said earlier, I don't give up on people, especially when I know they need it and they've told me they need it, right? Um, I want them to see that I'm consistent and that would be a great coach for them because of my consistency. Anyway, and I started to feel bad, and I was like, "Do you think I should apologize?" You know, and he's like, "No." He's like, "You didn't do anything wrong." He said, "I've just never actually seen that look on your face." And I was like, "Okay, well, moving on." And I think that's where, you hear people all the time talk about when they get older that they don't the older you get, the less you care about what other people think about you. And I think that's so true. Like I'm starting to I'm a people pleaser, right? I'm one of those people that if someone's mad at me, like, oh, okay, here's a great example. I could be in a room of 200 people, and 199 of the people think that I'm the greatest in the world and they love me. And one person in that room could have a problem with me or not like me or whatever. And that's the one person I would worry about or think about because I don't want people mad at me. I want people to like me. I think that's just human nature. Everybody wants to be liked and loved and cared for and cared about, right? Um, but sometimes I worry about that too much, and I worry about what other people are gonna think, and I don't wanna I don't know. I don't know, this was just one of those moments where, like, I don't like being lied to, that's one of the biggest things, and she lied straight to my face. Yes, she's been ghosting me. Like, don't come up to me and say you haven't when you absolutely have. You could just come up and say hello, right? You don't have to give me a line of bullshit. You could just say, "Hi, how are you?" And I'm like, "Great, how are you?" And there she's like, "Great." And then we move on. "Good to see you." Right? Could have been left like that. But don't lie to me. Don't insult my intelligence like that. And I think that's why I kind of called it out. Like, yeah, you are. Yeah, yeah, you have been, but it's cool. Like you have been, but I'm not worried about it. Right? When you decide it's something that you want, then you'll come to me. And, and if that turned you off, that I was treating you how you've been treating me, then I guess that sucks to suck. Right? I mean, that's how you've been treating me. So why? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a mean person, and I didn't do it to be mean. I guess I just didn't care in that moment. Like, yeah, you are. Like, don't lie to my face, and I just wanted to move on. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm digging a grave or a hole or whatever right now. It doesn't really matter. I'm just talking about how I'm feeling and something that happened today. And, I always wonder, am I ever going to run out of things to talk about on this? And the answer is probably not. Um, so the story I actually wanted to get into today uh, is a really hard one, and um, I'm just going to jump right in. I am the people that are in this story know who they are. I'm not going to say names. If I accidentally do, Danny will probably bleep it out. Um, But I do that for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not here to trash anybody, right? I'm not here to dog someone or make someone look bad, but I'm telling the story of something that happened to me that was so traumatic a year and a half, a year and a few months ago that it changed, it changed my business, honestly. It changed what I felt um, about some of the people that I'm in business with. And I have something that I want to remember to say. Sorry, I'm out of screen for a second, but I don't want to forget a certain part of it, so I'm going to make myself a note. Okay, so about 14 months ago, I took a girls' trip with some people that I know really well and I've known really well for a long time. And there was a part of me that did not want to go on this trip. You guys know that I've had addiction in my past. Uh, you know that my mom's an alcoholic, uh, or was. I think she's had a drink in, I don't know, about a year and a half or so, which is great. Um, and we haven't even gotten into those stories, and I don't know if I ever will because I don't want to ever embarrass my mom, but because I love her, she's my mom. Um, it, one of the girls on this trip um, has, has a problem with alcohol, and it was it was to the point where I just didn't know if I really wanted to be around that person. Like I had a lot of respect for that person and looked up to that person, and the more and more I was around her, um, the less respect I had. Uh, so decided to go on this girls' trip, and there were four of us. Um, and it was a very quick trip. We got there on Friday, left on Sunday. So um, Friday was great. It was a good day. It was an easy day. Um, Out to the beach, had a good time. Um, Saturday was Saturday was a hard day. Um, so the day started out, we went walking on the beach, and most of us that were coming to visit, we don't we don't spend a lot of time walking on a beach. So the walk was long, and it was, gosh, like an hour and a half long. It was a really long walk, and I'm for the most part capable of that, but I'm also not used to walking that far barefoot and stuff. So on the way back, I was like almost in tears. My feet hurt so bad because I had worked out the day before, and it's hard walking in sand. I don't know if y'all don't do it often. It's pretty rough. So like a mile one way, like it was an hour and a half walk from one end to the other, one end and back. And so I was frustrated with that, right? And then the day started out with everybody drinking, and I'm not a big drinker. I might have a drink once a week, maybe. My husband's seen me drunk like 3 times in our entire 15 years together. I've seen him drunk twice in our entire 15 years together. Uh, so there was some drinking already happening in the morning, and it's so hard telling this story because I don't want to hurt people, but there's still so much hurt, and I'm still working on forgiveness. So forgive my pauses. I hope it doesn't make you hang up, but or turn it off. But okay, so that afternoon, we hung out and then we went to this little restaurant and I had a drink. The people I was with had several drinks and then we left. I asked, I asked her husband that was with us to it was a girls trip, but her husband was still there. I asked her husband to, drive me back to the house with the golf cart, and he did so. And because everybody was just getting a little out of hand and a little loud, and that's too much for me, right? So I just went to the house, took a bath, relaxed, chilled out. Then it was time for dinner, so I got dressed, and everybody went back to that restaurant for dinner. And I had gone to the bathroom, and you can say what you want, but I'm one of those people that I actually sit down on the toilet seat when I pee. Um, I just do. And normally I check to make sure there's not pee on the seat. The girl that went in before me was already pretty wasted. And so uh, we sat down in all her pee. It was so gross. I was so pissed. Like, and then and she just left it like that, right? And a little while before that, um, we had been on a golf cart and we were trying to catch the sunset. And I made a comment to her like, "I don't. How do you drive this thing? How do you drive this so well drunk, right?" And she wasn't like wasted at that point, but I could tell she, this wasn't my golf cart to drive. So I could tell she, had a few and she just looked at me and she smiled. And she's like, practice. I was like, okay, and I'm just trying to go with the flow, y'all. I'm trying to not be my uptight self and just have a good time and let things go, right? And not let it bother me so much. So that's what I was trying to do in that moment. And then in the bathroom, when I sat in her pee, I was just like, oh my God, I was so frustrated. And I got back to the table at the restaurant, and she had ended up sitting next to me. And a few of us each had a drink that night. I had one drink. She was a couple more glasses of wine in, and this was after several drinks before we left, and several drinks, and it just, there was a lot. And she reached over to me and just kind of like shook at me, and she was just, I was already irritated. She was, I don't tolerate drunk people well. I don't like it. I grew up in it too much and I just don't like it. uh, and so she was getting a little physical, like, she wasn't, like, being mean, she was trying to be, like, sweet and love on me and stuff, but I don't know, I was just already in a not a good spot, right? Not a good place mind-wise, and I said, "Hey, can you stop doing that? Because that's the kinda shit my mom used to do to me when I was young." Um, Trying to hug on me and stuff when I don't like it. So she got her feelings hurt when I said that and ordered another glass of wine. And we finished up dinner, um, and we were going to leave, and there were two different golf carts, and three of the girls, the one the one that was drinking the most was driving. This is her golf cart, and two of the other girls that we were with were on that golf cart already, ready to go. And I decided that I was not going to ride on a golf cart with somebody that drunk because shit happens. So I was going to wait for her husband. He ended up staying back talking to some friends, and such anxiety talking about this. Like, my heart rate is crazy, Tim. Um, so everybody, all the girls are on the golf. They're like, come on, it'll be fine. Just, and I gave in to the peer pressure. Stupid. So I said, screw it. And the kind of golf cart, it was like two people facing frontwards, two people facing backwards. And so we're driving through there, and there are some potholes that have to be avoided, and remember, I'm trying to just go with the flow, right? So I turn some music on, I'm laughing, I'm just letting it go, trying to have a good time, and the driver starts swerving a little bit and, like, swerved real hard, and I almost fell the back of the golf cart. And the girl that was sitting next to me, she was like, "Oh my gosh, you should have seen the look on your face." That and I was like, That scared the shit out of me." And she's like, "Oh, you should have seen the look on your face. That was hilarious." And I looked at her and I just said, this is how bad stuff happens. Man, if I knew what I was foreshadowing in that moment." I was like, she almost threw me off. I was like, "And this is how bad shit happens." And the driver heard that, and I don't know if it frustrated her or fueled her or whatever, but shortly thereafter, she started acting crazy again, swerving back and forth on the little gravel road, and one time she swerved really hard, and the girl sitting in the front of the golf cart flew out. It happened so fast that I will never unhear the sound of her head hitting the concrete. So we stopped the golf cart, and the girl that was the driver, I'm just gonna start calling it the driver, and then the passenger on the road and my friend sitting with me, maybe that'll or the passenger and that fell out. So the driver came around and she was trying to, uh, get her up and all that, and I'm like, "Don't touch her, don't move her, we don't know what's happening." And, this girl has had, back problems and as a kid, and there's just too many things that can go wrong when someone's had a head injury, you don't know. And trying to tell the driver to stop moving her, stop lifting her up because she was just gonna get her inside. "No, no, she'll be fine. Let's just get her inside on the couch. She'll be fine." Well, I finally got her to stop. It was just like dead silence, and the girl that fell out was just like laying there, and I thought she was dead. I really thought I was looking at like somebody that was dead laying on a road. And the only light we had on the road was, it's just this little resort road, so the only light was from the golf carts and from our phones. And, about 3 minutes later of quiet, she just laid there and she was just moaning, and and I just and I was like, "Okay," I told the girl that was sitting next to me, "Call 911," right? I'm an action taker, right? So I'm a delegator. I'm the one that's gonna be calm in the situation and that's going to delegate what people need to do. That's just my nature. Um, so I said, "Okay, you go call 911. I'm gonna go call her husband and the driver's husband and let him know he needs to get his ass here really fast." And I called him and I said, "Hey, listen, the driver just threw the passenger out of the golf cart and she's on the ground and she's not moving, and I need you to get your ass here quickly." Um, when I got off the phone with him, I looked at the girl that was sitting next to me and said, "Did you call 911?" And she's like, "No, I don't want to get anybody in trouble." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like there's someone that could be like laying here dying. You have to call 911." Because she actually contemplated helping the driver drag the girl into the house onto the couch. 911 was called. Security from the resort came. Um, there were people driving by to the restaurant that were stopping. No one was a doctor. Um, they had a little ambulance, little rescue on the island, so we had that there. But there was no way to really transport her and get her off the island, so Care Flight was called in. And while she regains consciousness a little bit. She's real woozy, but she doesn't remember anything that happened, right? And so, since she didn't, I don't know, she had blood on her face and her legs were torn up, and it was just, she had a big bump on her head. And and I asked the driver's husband, I said, "Have you called her husband?" And he said, "No." And I said, "You need to call her husband. It's been 30 minutes since she's had an accident, and her husband needs to know that something's wrong." Um, and it was taken that I was being ugly to everybody because I was delegating, right? There's so much to this story. So, Care Flight, I call Danny and I'm telling him what's happening as the EMTs are looking at her and stuff. And everybody's asking, "Well, what happened? What happened? What happened?" She's like, I was just swerved." The driver said, "I was just swerving to hit a pothole, swerving from hitting a pothole." And I know that wasn't the case. I mean, I know there were potholes out there, but not where we were. Um, So Care Flight took her. She ended up in ICU that night. Brain bleeds on both sides of her head, brain injury. If they'd have dragged her into the house and put her on the couch that night, um, she could have died. So there's a part of me that was glad I was on that golf cart, and another part of me that wishes I really wasn't, and wishes I hadn't even gone on that trip. Um, so that evening, I called a friend of mine who is a recovering addict, and I was like, "I don't know how to deal with this." Like, she's a very recent recovering alcoholic, and she was about a year and a half sober at this point. And I'm like, "This girl needs help, and I don't know how to help her." You know, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle the situation. And even after it happened, the driver was still drinking because everybody was around her. "Oh my gosh, and I can't believe this happened, and are you okay? I know you're so worried about your friend." And she was worried about her friend. She ended up coming downstairs and where me and the other girl were staying, and she walked in the door and she said, "Hey." And I said, "Hey." She goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "No, I'm not. I almost just killed my best friend." So she knew in that moment what the extent of the damage, right? She knew. And I was so angry, but I also know what it feels like to hurt people and to put people in situations that you don't mean to, and it's the addiction, right? And I hugged her and I told her, "Everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this." And then she left, and it was just, I don't know, it was just weird, awkward, just awkward. Later that evening, her husband went to the hospital to go stay with her, to go stay with the girl that fell out of the golf cart. And once he got back, they drove me and the other girl to the airport, the driver and her husband. And on the way to the airport, let me back up. let me back up. Um, there's some things that I feel like I should keep to myself, and some things that I shouldn't in this story. But I think that this is part of the story, and part of the frustration that I have from all of it is that we were walking back into the house that night. Her husband was so angry, and he said, "I'm so tired of this shit. I'm always having to clean up after her shit. She just wants to party and have fun and not worry about the consequences. And I'm so tired of dealing with the consequences for her." I've only told one other person that he said that to me. And so that's why this next part will be so crazy to hear. The next morning, when we were driving back, when we were being driven to the airport, it was several hours early because they wanted to get to the hospital, and it's understandable. So we packed up as soon as we got up that morning, and they took us to the airport. And on the way, um, her husband started talking about this place in Dallas that he went to a long time ago to deal with his childhood trauma. Was telling me how great he thinks that it would be if I went to somewhere like that to deal with my childhood trauma from my mom being an alcoholic. And I just listened, right? I just took it that they needed somebody to be the scapegoat, right? They needed to blame somebody. And 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 what I really wanted to say was, maybe you should talk to your wife about going to the Betty Ford clinic. Right? That's what I wanted to say, but I didn't, because it wouldn't have helped the situation. It was just a bad situation altogether. And when we got to the airport after they dropped us off, my friend that was with me, the one that was sitting back in the back of the golf cart with me that night, she said, "I can't believe you sat there and took that. I can't believe that you sat there and let them talk to you like that, like you're the one that has a problem, like you're the one who caused an issue." And the reason that came up is because I said to her the night before, like, "Please don't get physical like that with me, because that's the shit that my mom used to do, right?" And so that's where all that's stemming from. And I told her that that was something that was said at dinner. She's like, "Okay, that makes sense." She said, "But I still can't believe you sat there and took that." And like I said, they needed a scapegoat. They needed somebody to blame in that moment. And, that the driver and I had gone to the beach early that morning and sat, and we didn't really have a whole lot to say to each other. She knew I was really angry with her, and she was really angry with herself. And there wasn't really much to say at that point, um, other than this is just messed up. This is just effed up, right? This is a effed up situation. And there was nothing I was going to say to help that situation or to make it. I mean, anything that I had to say was probably going to make it worse, right? Um, but I also know about hitting rock bottom. And I know that that should have been her rock bottom, right? Killing my dog getting hit by a truck in front of me because of my irresponsibility, because of my drug addiction. That was my rock bottom, and that was my wake up call. And that's what I thought about on that beach. Is, God, I hope this is her wake up call. Please let this be her wake up call to straighten up. I mean, she's got a family, and this isn't. It's just not okay. And I want her to. I want her to be well. I didn't wish any ill will, you know. Uh, so anyway, we get to the airport, and of course there's tears, and we're crying. We can't believe that happened, and we're worried about our friend in the hospital because we don't have any updates, and we didn't get any updates forever because the driver had this girl's phone, and she was just kind of running the ship. And it ended up that the girl that fell out of the car, she couldn't look at her phone for like 2 months. Well, I mean, that's hard. She had a lot of recovery with this. And I felt horrible for her. I felt like I should have said something like, "No, I'll drive the golf cart," or like, "How could I have done differently? What could I have done differently to have I don't know, made the situation different," right? So this happened in November of 2021. December of 2021, a month later after it happened, is the first time I ever got to talk to the girl that was thrown out of the golf cart. And here's where things get really interesting. I'm trying not to make this really long, but it might be. So I'm on the phone with her and I'm in tears and I'm just like, I'm so glad you're okay. Is there anything I can do? And she's like, no, I can't believe I was that stupid. And I was like, what are you talking about? Can't believe you were that stupid. And she was like, "Uh, well, I was on my phone and I wasn't like planted in like steady in the golf cart. Like I had one leg crossed over the other and I was texting. And just I just said, "Oh God." And she goes, "What?" I said, "This wasn't your fault. Like that's not what happened. You may have been texting and you may not have been planted firmly, I mean, you were sitting in your seat, you may not have had both feet on the floor, but like the driver was swerving, acting a fool. And that's why you fell out." Like it so what happened is when the driver's husband called the injured girl's husband, he said, "Oh, yeah, I could totally see that. I could see her just that's how she rides in our Razor all the time, just sitting there, with her legs crossed, texting on her phone, not paying attention and not keeping herself." I can't find the word I'm looking for, but not making sure she was planted where she needed to be to not get an injury in a golf cart or a Razor or whatever. And that's what the driver and her husband ran with. Instead of taking accountability for what had actually happened, they just let them believe that it was because she had her leg crossed over the other, and she wasn't firmly planted in the. I wish I could think of the word. If Danny was in here, he would tell me the word I'm looking for. We do that all the time. Um, so I wonder what my heart rate is right now. I'd be really curious to know because it is like racing telling this story. Um, so we're on the phone and I'm just like, "Uh, that's not what happened." And I was in tears and I was at a hospital at the time because our son was in the hospital because he had like a chest tube in his chest because he ended up with a hole in his lung when we still can't figure out why. Um, so I was like over in a corner talking to her, bawling my eyes out in a hallway of a hospital, told her what happened. And I talked to, the girl that was sitting with me that night and I was like, "Okay, this is what just happened and I can't believe that this is what they let her believe." And they didn't and there was no ownership taken. Um and so the girl that was injured called the driver and told her what I had said. And the driver said that I was lying. Do you remember at the beginning of this podcast I talking about I don't like liars? I am the last person on the planet to lie. I will tell you the truth even if it hurts you because I'm not going to tell a lie. So that killed me. right? And there hadn't been any communication between me and the driver except for one thing, and I had talked about how when I hit rock bottom, and I think that she was at rock bottom, and, where do you go from here? The only way to go from here is up, right? And her response to this long message that I sent her was she sent me an emoji, like, blew me a kiss. There were no words, no nothing, and she wasn't ready to hear what I had to say. She wasn't ready to receive it, and that's okay, right? Because that's in God's timing. But at that point, I just really stopped any communication, and so the driver said that I was lying. So the girl that got injured called the other girl that was with us, and the other girl that was with us that was sitting with me on the back of the golf cart that night, she said, uh, she verified everything that I said. And the driver and the girl that got hurt, they're still best friends. They made it through their friendship with this. Uh, I I'm honestly not sure how, uh, but they did, and that's okay. Um, the what I struggle with is the forgiveness side of things for someone calling me a liar when they stood in front of me and said, "I almost just killed my best friend." Like, they were very aware of the situation. She knew what happened. She knew what she had done. She admitted it to me directly that night, and then called me a liar. And this is someone, y'all, that I looked up to. I wanted to be like her. I wanted everything that this girl had, and and that's the hardest part is because I I loved her so much, and to lose that much respect for someone that you love, and for someone that you love to say something about you like that, that you're a liar when they know the truth, that's probably one of the most brutal things you could do to someone like me. Um, this has damaged the relationship, it's damaged the business, it's damaged the 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 culture, it's damaged, oh god, friendships that I thought I had that were so strong. Um, was it just fake? Was it just a lie? You have to ask yourself those things. Was it true? Was it real? Um, because this person told me they loved me all the time and they thought how amazing I was and all these things. And then all of a sudden, I'm a piece of shit and a liar. And to this day, it still hasn't been discussed. And there was an opportunity when we saw each other at one point to discuss it. Um, and as soon as I saw her and she was still drinking, like, I was done. I'm like, you didn't hit rock bottom. That didn't change you. That wasn't enough to change you. And that's not my decision. That's God's decision. But I can make the decision to not be around that person and to not be a part of that person's life. I get that choice, and she gets that choice too. And she didn't understand why I was so mad, and she came back and said something to someone else who got back to me. She didn't understand why all of a sudden I was talking to her, and then I stopped talking to her. Well, I stopped talking to her because I realized that she was drinking straight tequila from a clear cup, and it looked like she was drinking water. It's all about the what's the word I'm looking for? Appearances, right? It's all about appearances. Gosh, I loved this girl so much. I thought she freaking hung the moon. I was willing to look past all the other stuff because I just thought she was so great, and then to have so much respect for someone, and then they turn around and they call you a liar, and they tell I mean, it's so far from the truth. I think that's what hurts the most is and I don't know, maybe people don't believe her, because people know I'm not a liar. Like, that's the thing is, like, everybody that knows me knows that, like, if you wanna know the truth about something, go ask Allison because she's gonna tell you the truth. Like, I don't even speak to my goddaughter doesn't even speak to me anymore because she asked me a question one time 6 years ago. "Do you think that I dress trashy?" And I was like, "I think this is a conversation we need to have over the phone." And she's like, "No, just tell me, Aunt Allison. Just tell me what you think." And it was all via text. And I was like, "Well, I think that you could make some better choices in the clothes that you have. They do look a little trashy sometimes, and you have sisters, little sisters that look up to you, and I think that you should, straighten up your act a little bit." She hasn't spoken to me since. So if there's anybody that's going to tell the truth, it's going to be me, and and that's something like I can always guarantee people. Like, I give you my word, I'll always tell you the truth. I'll never lie to you. Uh, and there's other people involved in this as well. Um, and I want to bring something up on my phone. Um, I just missed something that someone was coming to my house. Oops. Um, what am I trying to find? I'm sorry. So this all leads into this story. Um, I found out that there were other people within our group. Like, we weren't supposed to talk about this story to people. We weren't supposed to talk to anybody or tell anybody these things. It was supposed to stay hush hush and quiet, and that's fine. I'm cool with that. I had the other person that was with me on the back of that golf cart that night to talk to about it, and my husband and things like that. I almost considered going to therapy about it because I was so angry that I lived it and breathed it and slept it, and I was so mad that it happened and that I didn't do anything to change it or to stop it from happening. I could have changed the course of that evening that if I'd have just done some things differently. And so I lived with a lot of guilt that girl got hurt because I didn't make a different decision that night. Um, and then the whole lying thing that came out right after that, just like it fueled the fire. And like, forgiveness has been a struggle for me because, forgiveness is like, um, it's forgiveness is for myself, not for you, right? The act of forgiveness is easy, but actually the feeling of forgiveness is a totally different thing. Saying I forgive you is easy. And I'm working on forgiving this girl. I'm working on forgiving this girl for myself. But there's a group of us that are friends, and I found out that one person in this group that I'm really close to actually knew about all of this that happened the day after it happened because the driver called her because they're friends. The driver called her and told her everything that happened. And I'm like, "You knew about this the whole time and you knew that I was in this like deep dark depression and you never even asked me if I was okay, like, or what happened, or you just took her word of what happened." And her response to me was, "I don't have a dog in this fight." That's probably one of the most hurtful things I've ever heard because if you're really my friend and you're really her friend, you do have a dog in the fight. And so there's something that came up on Facebook that I want to read. And this is so very true. And I've posted this. Um, if there's an abuser in your friend group and you choose to stay out of it and not pick sides, then you picked a side. You fostered a space that was safe for someone to abuse others, a space that says, "You're welcome to hurt people here." This one thing that happened damaged so many relationships because I don't trust these people anymore. My contact with them is limited. I care about them, but trust is a really big thing for me. And as soon as I don't trust you with my heart and my feelings, and you don't stand up for me, and we're supposed to be friends, and you don't have my back, probably not somebody I'm going to spend a lot of time with, even though I care about you a lot. So, like I said, a year and a half, a year and 2 months later, I'm still working on forgiveness. Um, I still talk about it. I still worry about it. I still dream about it. Like I said, I'll never unhear the sound of my friend's head hitting the concrete. And I'll never understand. Well, I will. I do understand. I understand why I became a liar in that moment because alcoholism does terrible things to people's minds and hearts. And when you're an alcoholic, appearances are everything, right? Because you're trying to hide most of that stuff. And I get that. I get it because I grew up in it, right? But you need to know it's not okay. And it took me this put me into, like, I would say from, you know, the end of 2021 to probably the spring of 2022 is when I really started, like, coming out of it, but it put me in such a depression. Like, I still got all my stuff done, I still handled my stuff, but you can ask my husband, I wasn't right. And you can ask my kids. I mean, that was one of the most traumatic things I've ever experienced in my adulthood life. That scared the shit out of me. So, lesson, I'm a survivor. Yes, things may similar songs in Amazon Music. I don't know if y'all heard that. Alexa, stop. But she heard me say that and she started to play Survivor. That's hilarious. Um, I guess we needed to lighten the mood a little bit. So I'm a survivor, right? I mean, I am one of those people that it may get me down for a minute, but it's not going to get me down forever. But gosh, my heart is so broken from that. And I love you with all I have. I give you all my devotion and my loyalty and I give it to you all. And my heart is so broken. Oh, my heart is still so broken from that. I miss those relationships. I miss those people. I miss that closeness and that camaraderie and people that I look up to. Man, I miss that so much. And I miss that girl. I miss that driver. Yeah, I'm a survivor. And no matter what you go through, no matter if it was young or when it's now, you have to fight every day. You have to get up and you have to fight. And you have to put both feet on the floor and you have to move through your day no matter how heartbroken you are. You can't let it take everything away from you, because I almost did. I almost let that take everything away from me. I almost just gave up. I almost walked away, almost, but I didn't. And I'm still here. And I have a choice every day when I wake up. I can be a victim of all the things that happened to me, or I can be a survivor. But I can tell you this: don't get in a car with someone drunk. Don't get on an ATV with someone drunk. Don't get on a golf cart with someone drunk. Just don't, because they don't have their faculties about them and they're not themselves. Just don't put yourself in that situation ever, because it's not worth it. And if you see a friend put themselves in that situation, make them get out. Make them get out and you walk with them wherever they're going, because that walk, it may be a little far of a walk, but it's worth not them not getting hurt. That's what I should have done that night. I should have told all my friends, let's walk. Let's just walk together. I wonder how different life would be now if we would have just walked together. The reality of that just crushes me. Anyway, um, I don't know if anything like this has happened to you or you've lost that kind of respect or you're heartbroken from the loss of a friendship, but I'm not the bad guy in this at all. And I have to remind myself all the time of that. Anyway, thanks for listening today. I know we've been on here way too long. Gosh, probably an hour now. Sorry about that. Well, I'm not sorry because I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time. And if you're one of those people that you know what I'm talking about and you know the story, um, you're probably going to be the first one that says to pick up the phone and call that person and say, "Oh my God, you need to listen to this podcast." I hope you do that. And I hope that the person that was my friend gets to hear this side of it because there's never been an apology. And I don't think there ever will be. The apology is for putting us in that danger that night and for calling me a liar. And I don't know if that apology would heal things or not, but man, it sure would help. So if you're hearing this and you know what this is about, go tell the driver. Go tell my friend. This is what she should listen to because what it boils down to is just having a broken heart. And I'd love to figure out how to fix it. I know things will never be the same, but there's a lot of people in this situation and this whole ordeal that could have done more than they did. I wish I'd have never been there. Maybe it would have never happened. One of the biggest regrets of my life that I went on that trip. I should have listened to my instincts, my gut instincts, and I will from now on totally listen. Anyway, you guys have an awesome day. Sorry this was hard stuff, but thanks for listening. And if you have someone that is in your life that has a problem, just I don't know, don't get in the car with them. Don't let anybody else get in the car with them. Just don't. Just say no. Like, no thanks, I'll call Uber. There was no Uber on that island, but we could walk. And you and your friend could always walk instead of getting in a ride. So remember that. Anyway, peace out, homies. Y'all have a great day. Talk to you soon.